This is Dennis Miller. Welcome to my podcast, Visionary Leaders. Very nice, exciting day here. I'm Chairman and CEO of Dennis C. Miller LLC and the DCM Center for Nonprofit Governance and Leadership. We're very excited to have a wonderful guest today, a prominent leader throughout the country, who's going to be about to have her really big conference soon. And let me introduce you to Dr. Akila Watkins. Dr. Watkins, join us. Welcome.
How are you doing, Dennis? Please call me Akila.
I will do that, Akila. So welcome here. Why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself to our listeners and for those that may not know about the independent sector, and we'll kind of go from there. But Akila, it's all yours.
Sure. So Dennis, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm looking forward to this conversation and to talk to your listeners. My name is Akila Watkins, and I am President and CEO at Independent Sector. We are a national membership organization, and we are a national membership organization focused on making sure that the charitable sector is healthy, it's trusted, it's equitable. We want to make sure that every person in the United States thrives in a healthy civil society and just democracy. That is our vision at the end of the day. And we do that through a variety of ways. I'll be able to share a little bit more about that.
Please, please.
But yeah, so just a couple things. Our members are comprised of all that composes of the charitable nonprofit sector. So they are your local nonprofits, small, medium size, and large. They are also your philanthropic organizations that help to fund and fuel the work of local nonprofits. They also are corporate social responsibility entities and research institutions. So all of the sort of trifecta that make up our charitable nonprofit profit sector. So at Independent Sector, what we do, we're one of the oldest national infrastructure organizations in the country, and we serve as the charitable nonprofit sector's national trade organization.
It's what's very impressive about the independent sector and having worked with and spoken at and met with, many of the other nonprofit trade associations around the country, nationally or statewide, is you're the first one that I know of that brings both the philanthropic sector and the nonprofit sector together here. And that poses great opportunities and challenges, I would assume. So what is that like? What are the challenges and what are the obstacles? And yet, and I'm going to ask you, what you've been around for about almost 3 years in your role as president and CEO. What are the achievements that you kind of look upon to say this has been an achievement for the past 2 years?
Yeah. So independent sector is a little over 45 years old. So
It's
we have,
like me, 45 years old.
I know that's right, Dennis. So that's one. And two, we are a broad Dennis. So there's no way to get around that. And it's a beautiful thing. It's the reason why we were created. We know that a thriving and bustling civil society is not going to be able to just have nonprofits or just have foundations or just have well-meaning corporations. That we need the collectiveness of all of us working together to make sure that we are looking critically at the issues that impact millions of Americans. It does bring a challenge. I mean, obviously, every group has their priorities. And so, one of the things we do at Independent Sector, we find those places of alignment between all aspects of the charitable nonprofit sector. So, one of the places we've been able to find that we all agree on, for instance, is the nonprofit workforce. As you can imagine, we are a sector that is powered by people, and we all have to employ people. There are about 13.9 million Americans that work for the country's 1.9 million nonprofits. So we have to think about a workforce just like any other trade organization has to do.
10% of the American workforce is in the nonprofit sector.
It sure is. We are 10% of the private workforce, and we are the third largest private employer in the country. So I have to think about labor a lot. I have to think about it for today. I have to think about it for 10 years from today, and I have to think about it 50 years in the future. Nonprofits are never going to be able to do the work that they do without people. And so, anyway, that's one of the issues we've been able to come together around. But there are others. I mean, obviously, we had a huge conversation in this country about taxes and the latest federal tax bill that has happened. And so, one of the places that we were able to lead and show up as independent sector is making sure we deepened the Universal Charitable Deduction Act, right? Like that's something we all care about. We want more Americans to be able to give to the charities of choice. We want more Americans to be able to volunteer for the charities that mean the most to them, right? So these are the issues that we work on in independent sector, issues that cut across sort of how you enter the charitable nonprofit sector, but deeply impact you and have huge consequences for the American population.
Thank you. Okay, today, we know there's dramatic challenges out there. You mentioned early on about we all want to see a just, equitable society, and I think everybody
Indeed.
agrees to that. And sometimes I think about, the reasons why people left England to come here, and that was the American way, the American Revolution. And then, sadly, you may agree and not agree that right now we're so far away from all that here. Um, from the independent sector point of view, are you hearing from both the foundation world and from the nonprofit world, or the people providing the services, same challenges, equal challenges, different challenges? I mean, how do they react into the political world of the political culture today?
Yeah, so Dennis, I will just tell you, I'm a New Yorker. That's where I'm born and bred, and I come
Where,
from a
where, where in New York, born and bred? Where?
yeah, from Brooklyn, New York.
Hey, my wife's
I
from the
know.
Bronx. My wife's from the Bronx.
All right. Absolutely. And my family has been living there for over 50 years. And so I am a child of immigrants. And so I get this at a very deep and personal level. And so I will just say in terms of what the nonprofit sector is enduring, they're feeling it. They're feeling it for on a couple of different fronts. So one, what is happening and what should alarm all of us is the rollback of the social safety net in America. We know that Americans are struggling. We know that financially, many Americans and American families are struggling to make ends meet and pay for things like medication, for rent, childcare, the healthcare. And Dennis, you know a lot about healthcare because of your background. And so as we see the social safety net in America thin, thin incredibly all across this country, nonprofits are the ones that step up, right? We take care of Americans when government doesn't, right? When they don't know where to go, because nonprofits are we are very, very proximate to our neighbors, to communities. And so that is what we're hearing from nonprofits. Nonprofits are working on a variety of issues across the board. And so obviously we're hearing from nonprofits how they need to be able to take care of their community and constituency, but also that they know that it's going to be less funding available for them to do that, and then there's going to be more need.
You're right, and years ago, I mean, government and nonprofits sort of work together, other than funding. That was a challenge, was funding, but the goals were somewhat the same, to help with people. Right now, it's very different. Let me ask you this question. So, if you look back for the past, say, 2.5 years yourself here, what are you most proud of in your role as heading up the independent sector? Can you think about something, or not?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Dennis. I'm proud of a lot. So a couple of things. One is that our focus on our workforce in the nonprofit sector. 2.5 years ago, this wasn't sort of the main thrust. Like the sector didn't think about ourselves as a workforce. We thought about ourselves as, wonderful human beings doing incredible work across this country for Americans and American communities, right? But to actually have a collective ethos that we are a workforce, and that our major job is to make sure that our Americans are safe, they're healthy, you know, um, that their needs are being met, and that we also, as a workforce, should be thinking about the future of how we keep ourselves healthy, right? I have worked in this sector, Dennis, since I've been 14.
I
Um,
saw that. And
I,
you had incredible achievement with some kind of housing
I
development.
did. I did. I was the first person in the state of New York to use the Community Reinvestment Act as a way to garner a building in our neighborhood to then convert it into a community center for young people. Because I grew up in a working class neighborhood that did not have a lot of community amenities, and we thought that was unfair. And so that's what I did. So I've been in this field since for all of my life, but we never thought about.
For 10 years because you're still a teenager. There you go.
But Dennis, we never thought about, retirement for the nonprofit sector, right? Like we think anybody that works in this sector that gets up every morning has to think about how do we feed Americans? How do we make sure that children learn how to swim, right? Like think about all the stuff. Nonprofits do everything from working on diseases all the way to making sure that children know how to swim for the summertime, right? We do all that in between, and we never think about how our sector deals with retirement, deals with health insurance, deals with mental health, the work, the sort of psychic weight that most nonprofit workers are enduring daily. We don't really have an answer or a strategy for it. So that's one of the things that I focused on. I was laser focused on when I got here in 2023, partly because we were coming out of COVID, partly because I waged a nationwide listening tour. And when I had to sit down and talk to almost 1,000 nonprofit workers and those in small, rural, urban, suburban areas, I heard the same thing. Our workforce is struggling.
Well, I'm going to come back and tell you that story, my story in a second, but it's interesting. You hit something in my brain here. In a way, the nonprofit sector is sort of like the union representing the workforce of people. There's very few. I'm not talking about hospitals and stuff, but there's a lot of there's no one representing has not been representing the workforce, and
No,
you are an equivalency of like the new nonprofit AFL-CIO. You're supporting them, and whether it's at the state legislature, at the national legislature, that's important to know because we all know the challenges of retaining staff, let alone developing staff, is kind of what we do. But that's a great achievement, and so congratulations for that. That's incredible here. When you look ahead, and I want to talk about your conference. So you've got a wonderful Independent Sector National Summit coming up soon. What an impressive program I see in the schedule here. Gonna be, if I'm correctly, in Atlanta, Georgia. Am I correct on that? Okay, so
yes, yes, you are, Dennis,
I
correct.
am from Jersey. We get some things right. Some things right. Jersey. What are you hoping to achieve? What's your goal? So when that's over at the end of next month, and you say that was wonderful, what are you hoping will make it wonderful?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is that we want to be able to share some of the research we've been doing about the health of the sector, right? So what will make it wonderful is if people leave saying, I'm deeply educated about where we are as a sector right now. I understand the challenges. I understand where we have really won over the American people, right? Because one of the things we want to be able to share with the American public and those who attend our sector is we do a national survey on trust. We actually go to the American public every single year because we know social trust is our number one currency. And did you know, Dennis, that approximately 57%, but approximately 60% of Americans highly trust nonprofits, right? We are the most trusted institutions that Americans interact with on a daily, weekly, monthly level. We're more trusted than small business, than media, than the military, than Congress. We're
That
trusted.
that's a very important factor, and I want to help you get that word out next time you do your survey because we have extensive followers and we'll promote that for you in on a heartbeat. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, absolutely. So Dennis, this is one of the things we want to be able to let our constituents know. So that's one of the things we want people to be educated. The second thing is that we want people to know what has been done to be able to protect the sector during this time. The sector has undergone unprecedented attacks on it. And part of my job is to defend the sector, to make sure the sector is strong, to make sure that Congress, no matter what political affiliation policymakers are, that they know the importance of the charitable nonprofit sector, both from a social perspective, but also from an economic perspective. Because Dennis, the other thing that we are very clear about is that the nonprofit sector contributes to about 5 to 7% of the country's GDP, right? That's huge.
Yeah,
That's huge.
yeah, no, it's very huge. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just think it's those numbers are important because I don't think everybody understands that. And particularly, I was going to ask you this. I'm sure you interact and involved with the legislative process in states and the national and the U.S. government here. Before I talk about the independent, what success do you think overall the nonprofit trade association, whether it's statewide or nationwide, what kind of success do you think they've had legislatively, and how did they differ from any other group of people that are trying to push forward their agenda? Anything? Any thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. So, couple things. One is that we were able to push back any threat of an endowment tax, and for an excise tax. So that was huge for the sector, because what this would have done in essence is it would have removed more money out of the grant making pool for nonprofits, right? So that's one.
Yeah.
The second thing is we were able to get HR 4945 removed. This was huge because this bill would have taken away the organizational sovereignty of nonprofits, especially if they were identified as an organization that in any way touched or were involved in terrorism, but terrorism was never defined, right? And so we want to be very careful. So let me just be clear. We do not support any organization that participates in terrorism, and they should not be able to use a 501c3 status in order to move any nefarious intention.
All right.
And and we need to be very careful, especially in this political climate, when we are defining terms like terrorism, that we need to be very clear about that. And this bill did not do that. And we already have legislation on the books that give policymakers the tools that they need to identify nonprofit, any organization, regardless of their tax status, that may be participating in terrorism. So we were able to stop HR 9495 from moving forward. Again, this was a huge win for the sector. We were able to increase the Charitable Deduction Act in the last budget bill. We more than 10 times it, right? So Americans will get more credit, especially non-itemizers, especially non-itemizers of taxes, which again, this is mostly our wealthiest individuals, but those individuals that are older and they're no longer working, but they want to give, right? Because what happened in 2017, because we decrease the individual deduction that itemizers can take, we lost about $20 billion in giving from
Wow.
the nonprofit sector. So this change alone actually will help bring back dollars that have been lost since 2017. So those are just three that I'm going to point to as wins, but there were some others.
I want to come back to your big conference and just, but I want to
Oh,
close with
yes.
percentage-wise ballpark for listeners here. In terms of, if there was a pie chart and in terms of where you spent your time, so much on legislation, so much on this. Describe, as in your role, where where do you spend your time? Where do you have to be? I know it's 150% for some, but where do you spend your time? Is it
Yeah.
legislatively? Is it, where do you spend your time, you think, mostly as an organization, not as yourself, but in your role, and where do you spend your time?
So I spend my time as CEO a couple different places. I would probably spend about 50% of it fundraising. The thing is that a lot of infrastructure organizations, we're not unique. We don't have money just laying around ready
No,
to,
yeah.
wage an existential, fight, or, defense against an existential threat to the sector. So part of my job is to raise money and awareness for people, right? Because Dennis, you can imagine, um, the sector was attacked in ways that we haven't historically been used to. So it's not like we have a huge muscle for this, right? And so, but we're resilient and we've built a muscle. But part of my job is to give people the vision, and give people a plan to move forward. So I spend about 50% of my time raising money, letting people know what our policy plan is. And probably I spend the other 30% of my time on Capitol Hill in some way, working with legislators on both sides of the aisle, making sure that they understand what the contributions of the sector are, but also, and Dennis, this is an important part, also hearing from policymakers about what they need, right? About sort of what the trickiness of the moment is and how we can manage the trickiness together, right? So, in order for us to get what we need in this moment. So that sort of political maneuvering and strategy and working, bipartisanly when we have opportunities. And that's the other thing. A lot of the wins that we've gotten, Dennis, have been done bipartisanly, and it's something that we are particularly proud of. I just want to say, because I know we have 2 minutes left, I want to see people in Atlanta this year because not only are you going to learn.
We're gonna get that. So why
Yep.
should
Not only are
people?
you going to learn what's happening, not only are you going to learn sort of the political and legislative strategies that we've been using to be successful in this moment, then we're going to spend some time really strategizing, because, Dennis, what this moment has taught us is that we don't get to rest, right? We have to be geared up and we have to be ready for the next, set of sort of political shifts, right? We know after the midterms, there's going to be political shifts. How does the sector, align itself, work together, make sure that our needs are at the forefront? So we're constantly moving, and that's why we need people in Atlanta this year to be able to co-create with us.
Yeah, I know, I agree with you. We're gonna encourage everybody to come to Atlanta, to see the Independence National Summit. Keela, you've been a fabulous, entertaining, educational guest, but I want to ask you this here. I mean that. So how can people reach out to you, people that want to get to know about the independent sector? How can they get to know about that? How can they reach out to you, the sector? What can they do?
So Dennis, the easiest way to reach out is go to our website, www.independentsector.org. So many of the resources that I referenced today are there, and available. If you're not a member of Independent Sector but would like to find out more information about it, check us out at our website. Again, www.independentsector.org. And then finally, if you want to connect with me one-on-one, the best way to do that is through LinkedIn. If you look me up, Akila Watkins on LinkedIn, I'm very active. I do engage with people, and I encourage people to reach out.
Same here with me, so hopefully we get connected. So listen, Akila, thank you very much. I want to thank certainly Chloe and Michael for helping make sure we can get you together today. You've been a great guest. I look forward to getting to know you as well. The podcast will let you know when that's coming out. Great success at your conference. Looking forward to hearing about it here. And as we wrap this up today, so I am Dennis Miller, Dennis C. Miller. Website is denniscmiller.com. We provide a wide range of services for nonprofit CEOs and boards. Strengthen their partnership, which is really crucial, so they work together better and help them achieve their organizational true potential. We work with CEOs and chief people officers, make sure they're helping them build their leadership development team. And it's amazing how many people are not aligned or they're in silent mortality. It's important to get everybody working together. We do that. And we certainly help, we're not a fundraising firm, but we guide you or your members in terms of how to raise money. And I always said to people, there's lots of reasons why people give, but the two major reasons that people give to success, not to the stress, and give needs to those you serve here. Again, so DennisCmiller.com. My email is dennis@denniscmiller.com, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. So Akila, thank you very much. Best wishes in your conference and look forward to talking to you later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.